Welcome back everyone, this is Reboso here. Today, as I promised, I will rank every Wings of Fire book. This series holds a special place in my heart. I have quite recently finished reading it. It's only been about a week. I thought I would do this video sooner, but unfortunately I didn't have that much time, and so here we are. Before I start, I want to mention that no matter what the book is, I want to say I love all of them, and I would reread any of them at any point. It's just that I can recognize the ones I like better. I won't make this video too short, but I also won't drag it out on purpose, and we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna do the first arc, then I'm gonna do the winglets, then I'm gonna do the second arc, then the Legends book, and then the third arc. I'll probably try to put timestamps in the description, so yeah, go check out the ones you want. Anyway, with that being said, let's start. The first book in the series is the Dragonet Prophesy. That's where it all began. It has a very nice prophecy. It's also a very thematic book. You can see the world they're building right from the get-go. The way they start with Vidas, I think it's called. It's really nice. They show all the violence in the first like 10 pages of the book, which is really nice. It doesn't hold back on that front. But unfortunately, I do not like the Dragonet Prophecy as much as other people, and so I will have to put it in C tier. Now, I know it's a good book, don't get me wrong, but you will see the other ones that I have prepared for you. Because thinking back at the Dragonet Prophecy, the way I rate it so low is because it doesn't have a lot of things to remember. I have a pretty good memory, and so, I mean, you know, it's already been like, it's been like 3 weeks since I've read the book at this point, but I would say I remember it rather well. So, first of all, you have the whole cave section, which takes quite a long time. I quite liked it. With Dune, Webs, and Kestrel trying to teach the Dragonets of Destiny how to fight, how to survive in the world, although, because they have no actual experience, it doesn't work very well. I think that part of the book is necessary. I think you cannot make, like, this book could have never been S tier, just because of the how many pages each of the books have. It's how it was made. So even though it can't be an S tier by default, because you have to do a lot of world building before you can actually start throwing in really cool plot lines and like things that the characters can do. Yeah, it has to go into C tier. I'm sorry, but you'll see. This book still holds a special place in my heart though, so don't immediately think I hate it. The next book in the series is The Lost Heir. The Lost Heir, The Lost Heir, yeah, that's how you call it. Anyway, The Lost Heir is one of those books which is not very important for the story, but it's actually very memorable. There's not a lot of books like them. Actually, before I say my description of The Lost Heir, I wanna actually rank it. This book, according to me at least, easily deserves an A tier. Now, I understand that most people would say that a book which has not a big significance to the plot could not possibly go very high, because why would it? It's skippable, it's missable. But I think the way the book should be rated is by how enjoyable they are, how much you remember of them, and how they develop the characters. In The Lost Heir, they do that perfectly well. So, as I said, by the end of the book, not much has changed, but you are introduced to the whole Kingdom of the Sea, which is very neatly shown. You also get an insight on what Blister is doing. In the first book, in the Dragonet Prophecy, although Burn is shown here and there along Scarlet, you don't really see what she's like. That comes after. I think mostly in book 5 you see a lot of her. And yeah. Anyway, in the second book, Tsunami's arc is great, and I think the book is enjoyable from start to finish. The only part that's a bit annoying is actually Glory, but I understand why they made her like that, like so sarcastic all the time, and you know, it's always she's always arguing with Tsunami. That's because they needed her to have another character arc. But anyway, I think the Lost Heir does so many things right. So let's just think about it. The first time Tsunami comes to the Sea Kingdom, she she immediately takes charge of things. She tries to order people around, although it's very awkward at the start because like everybody's like is just asking themselves who is this girl? Like, is she really the princess? Turns out yes. The relationship with her mother Coral is also pretty unexpected. You wouldn't think she's writing these scrolls about her or her to be such a supporting mother, although it's shown later that she doesn't care a lot about some of her other subjects. I think the moment where Tsunami first meets Anemone is one of the coolest in the in the whole book. It's so funny. It's a genuinely funny moment. How Tsunami first hears her name and thinks, "Oh my God, an enemy! I need to fight her." It's like her name is literally an enemy. Turns out it's not. That's just Tsunami being Tsunami, basically. She's very impulsive, but I also really loved how she always tries to be better, at least in her book. It's kind of weird that they kind of stopped her character arc. It seems in this series every POV has a character arc, but sometimes Tui forgets later on about them. Because Tsunami kind of defaults to her impulsiveness later along the story, but whatever. I yeah, I think the plot is great, although it's skippable because it doesn't actually do anything towards the story. You just gotta think. You learn about Marosir, you get Castle killed. I guess that's not that important. We also get introduced to Whirlpool, which Whirlpool people hate him. I also kind of hate him, but I think he's a very cool character to have in a story like this. He's very unlikable. That's like no one can argue with me on that, right? But the thing is, Whirlpool is one of those characters that you would not expect in a kid's book necessarily. He's basically just like a pervert in a way. Or like, technically not really, because he doesn't actually care who he marries. It's just that he wants to become king by marrying one of the princesses. And so, given that he even said he would marry Auklet, who was like a day old when he was an adult, it tends to sound a little weird, you know, and so his death is very satisfying, especially because he's annoying all the way over, like, just the way he speaks. I would be annoyed as well. Anyway, book 2, very good. Now, obviously, there's a lot to say about each of these books. I could literally go on a rant of like an hour for each of them individually, but I do have to make this video, well, not 4 hours long, and so I will have to move on. The next book is The Hidden Kingdom, which, to be honest, when I started reading it, I thought it would be the worst book that I would end up upon, but by the end of it, it turned out to be one of my favorites. The problem is this discrepancy before in the first half and the second half is so big that I cannot rate it anything better than B. Again, I think the second half of the book is the best content you can get in the first arc. I think it's a great story how Glory goes from, well, a sarcastic character, which she thinks is being discriminated against, which, to be fair, she is. And she doesn't really care about the world. She's just tagging along because she has nothing to do with her life. And then when she finds her village, they're all very lazy. She turns out every stereotype she thought was false about her tribe was real. And that really shocks her and it hurts her deep, which is understandable. But unlike other people, she doesn't just lay it off and just try to adapt to her tribe. Instead, she tries to bring her tribe up with her. And so, eventually, she decides she needs to be queen, because every queen that, I guess, democratically elected in that village of hers, they're not doing very much. They're very lazy, they don't care about others. I don't even know why they want to be queens. And so... And then in the second half of the book, where she gets captured and she goes to the island, you get some of the best interactions in the series with Kinkajou and Glory, and it's also very interesting how she fights, how she impresses people, how she finds a way to play by the queen's games. I don't remember all the queens' names. Actually, I don't really remember any of them. The only thing I don't like about the second half of the book is how Glory is revealed to have royal blood in her, because I feel that kind of defeats the whole point of anyone can take charge of their tribe no matter who they are. I think that's a weird decision, but that's how it was. I still can't give it more than B, unfortunately, because the first half of the book, while it was pretty important to understand, to emphasize the change that her tribe is going to go through and why Glory is so important, it's just very boring. I think it's the only time, actually the only time in the entire series, maybe except the Winglet Prisoners, in which I thought maybe I should put the book down because I'm kind of bored, which is not a good sign. But it made up for it, and it's in a solid B tier. The next book in the series is The Dark Secret. Now, The Dark Secret, a lot of people don't really appreciate its true value because they think it's quite boring. The book starts with Starflight getting captured, which Starflight is one of those characters which you can sympathize with, but he's also very suspicious because in the second book, in The Lost Heir, he gets kidnapped by... No, actually, in the first book he gets kidnapped by Lost Heir, and then when he gets returned, he kinda has a secret agenda now, because Lost Heir told him he needs to find a way to ally with Blister, and you know, to convince the other Dragonets that she's the one who needs to be queen. And so throughout the second book he tries to convince them of that, and although he changes his mind later and realizes that probably following Lost Heir is not the smartest thing, it just makes him feel very he's very easily manipulated. That's how it feels like, and so you don't really think you can ever understand him, especially because some of his reactions seem really odd, like how when he's sad he curls up and like reads Tales of the Nightwings or something. But this book really shows what's truly going on in his head. I was completely unaware until this book, I think, that he had a crush on Sunny, which was funny when I first read it and also kind of weird. I'm actually quite glad she rejected him in the end because I don't think they really went together. I'm sorry, Starflight. Anyway, this book goes in a solid B tier as well. It is actually better than the... sorry, it's actually a bit worse than the Hidden Kingdom, I think, so I will leave it here, to the right of it. This book really just shows everything the Nightwings have gone through in the last, like, 100 years. And it's very sad, although not much is happening in this book, and I think that's why people find it boring. I actually think it's more interesting than the Dragonet Prophecy, for example. I think the fake Dragons of Destiny are actually very interesting. You get to see what they could have been if they were even more poorly treated, I guess. The fake Dragons of Destiny really do not work well together, and while Lost Heir hopes to replace the original ones, or like some of them, with the fake ones, it's very clear that kind of none of the Dragonets in both sides want that, and so he gets frustrated. It's pretty funny. Starflight sees all the distraction on his homeworld, or like home island, whatever. He learns how they hunt, which is not much hunting. They kind of starve themselves to death, it seems like. He also finds about his father, which is called like Mastermind. I think it's Mastermind. Yeah, Mastermind. He finds about the queen, which is trapped in the lava. She has another weird name that Battle Whiner, I think. Battle Whiner or something. Battle Winner? Battle Winner or Battle Whiner. I think it's Battle Winner though. Anyway, that was also a very interesting character. And his relationship with Fate Speaker is also very interesting. I thought Fate Speaker would be an annoying character, but it turns out to have a lot in common with Starflight, and so they went pretty well together. I also like how she has a crush on him. One of my favorite parts of this book was when the Sandwing gets thrown into the lava pit, and then the fake Dragonets of Destiny don't really care about him at all, and it really shows what went wrong with them, because Starflight sees they have like no sympathy for one another, except Fate Speaker, which is different. Anyway, this book shows a lot of the Nightwings and what their home is like, and it makes it very clear what their motives are, why they want to go to the Rainwing village. I'm pretty uncertain how they forgot they have venom, and when they figure out they have venom, how they didn't realize that they had no idea how to use it. But that's a story for another time. Again, I could talk about these books nonstop, but we have to move on. The next book is The Brightest Night. Now, I know a lot of people like Sunny, and I like The Brightest Night, but I think it's a pretty awful book, in my honest opinion, you know. This book deserves a D tier in my list. The reason I don't think it's that good is because none of it makes any sense, or like the decisions rather. So the book starts with Sunny getting kidnapped by Fierce Teeth and her boyfriend Strong Wings, and another Nightwing which gets killed by Thorn later on in the story. Like, that's cool. I do not mind the kidnapping thing. Then they watch the Obsidian Mirror, they get some insight on Glory and stuff. Then Sunny gets away, which is pretty funny. I like that part. And then they decide, you know what, let's go to Burn's palace and show her where the Dragonets are, and surely she'll rescue the Nightwings, and then we can both kill the Dragonets and take over the rainforest. That seems like, I mean, an alright plan, I guess, although a little utopian, you know. I like, it's not very realistic, but you know, to them it's a good plan at least. So they start going to Burn's palace, and it's really interesting how they have no survival instincts. That's really cool. But then, what I don't understand is why Sunny would follow them. That to me doesn't really make sense. It would make a lot more sense to warn the Dragonets of Destiny of the incident, so that then they can prepare. Now I understand why she's hesitant, because they often put her aside, but let's be honest, that's a pretty important information to have. So anyway, she goes after them, right? At some point she finds them sleeping with no one on guard, and she manages to steal their obsidian mirror, which is a very big thing. But she's not going home after that, she still follows them. Now why, you may ask? That's a very good question, I don't know either. I feel like with the obsidian mirror you could spy on them wherever they are, so you could just go back to the rainforest and then spy on them. There's no reason to go after them anymore, cause she's not trying to get anything physically, she's just trying to figure out information about them, or like where they're going, or what they're gonna say. So why would you still follow them? I still think it's more important to like tell your friends, right? So yeah, then she gets into the Scorpion Den, and she finds her mother, which was extremely lucky, by the way. She could have gotten killed. Like, the first dragon she ends up to is her mother. Like, what if Thorn wasn't her mother? I guess she's a pretty nice character. She would have probably let her go, but like, still, why? And then she gets to Burn's palace, which I kind of forgot how that happened. Oh yeah, no, now I remember. Yeah, okay, so Thorn was tricked into going to like a fire hazard or something. And then someone kidnapped Sunny, and while Six Claws was trying to rescue her, she told him, now go back to Thorn, lie about it, why I'm being kidnapped. I don't want her to like feel sad about me and try to rescue me. And then she goes to Burn's palace, where she meets Smolder. She's pretty lucky there too, because if Burn was there, she would have been dead like for a second, but whatever. While she's in Burn's palace, everything kind of makes sense, right? Her relationship with Flower, everything, anything, it's fine. After she gets out of that, she goes to meet her father, which is he's a big disappointment, but whatever, you can't do much about that. And then she goes back to the Dragonets of Destiny, and they decide to stop the war. And they have the brilliant idea of gathering every single Sandwing Queen and try to talk things out. Now, that sounded like a really stupid idea for me when I first heard it too. But, man, when I saw the results, it was even worse. So, they get them all together and they start immediately killing each other. So, Blister kills Burn, which I don't think that's supposed to be what happens in like a peace discussion. But whatever. She kills Burn, she almost kills Clay, she almost kills Blaze. And then the Dragonets of Destiny decide, oh my god, none of these queens can be queen, they all suck. Like, oh, cool, good thing you realized it. And then, luckily, again, Flower he suddenly realizes they want the treasure from Queen Oasis, which I don't know how she figured that out, but you know, anyway. So she gets out the Eye of Onyx, and then Sunny makes Thorn the queen, and then Blister steals the thing and puts it on her head and she dies. Like, none of that even, like, do you know how lucky that is? I think that's just unreasonably lucky. And also, I don't think Thorn is necessarily the best choice. None of the people even know her, do they? They just know her as an outlaw, and now she's the queen? Whatever. I talk too much about this book anyway. Man, my throat is starting to hurt, I feel like, from talking so much. But anyway, the next book is Prisoners. Now, I think this is the worst piece of content in Wings of Fire history. Not because it doesn't make sense, but because it's just it's the most forgettable, unimportant, and boring story you'll ever hear. It's also short, and I think no one even cares about them. So it's a background story on Fierce Teeth and Strong Wings, which shows them, well, sneak out of the Night Kingdom and enjoy the rainforest, while nobody notices them. No, actually, they do get noticed eventually, and they get punished together. It really shows their relationship, but the problem is they don't really have any like, I would say screen time, but this is a book. I don't know, whatever the term is in book terms. Yeah, they don't really get a lot of focus. Like, the story is not about them. They barely get mentioned ever. And their little revolution, when they do try to make it, is like stopped by Darkstalker in like one page, and then they get put into prison for like about a day. So yeah, there's not much point of talking about it. I just think it kind of sucks and it's not interesting. They're literally in a prison talking with like a guard, which I'm not sure if it's the Sandwing getting killed, but someone got killed when Darkstalker stopped them. Anyway, the next winglet is Assassin. Now, this is a background story on Deathbringer, which Deathbringer, it's a really interesting character. I think he actually goes very well with Glory. I know the whole controversy about their age difference, and I do think it's fair to consider it the real age of Deathbringer. I know he's called a Dragonet, I think, at some point, but you know, 12 years actually makes a lot of sense for him, the way he speaks. He just seems like one of those young guys, or like young adults, which just you know, he just teases everybody all the time. So I think the relationship is actually fine, even though Glory is only 6 and he's like 12. Dragoneers work differently. I think they go pretty cute together, although he's kind of annoying at times, and it feels like he's kind of pushing Glory around a little bit. But they're pretty funny. I think the book deserves an A tier, or not A tier, sorry, B tier. I almost, yeah, no. I think it's a really good story, his background, how he disobeyed Marosir, he got into the world, he didn't want to return to the island. He manages to do the most important mission that the tribe had for him by himself when her mother suddenly dies by a storm. And it was really cool seeing the background of Blister's relationship with the Mudwings and the Sea Wings, and how that kind of fell apart at some point. It's also really interesting that after the second book, when the Sky Wings destroy the Summer Palace, all the Sea Wings go hiding, and Blister is just left with no army. Like, she can't do anything. She has a couple of Sandwings, and she can't find a single Sea Wing in like months, it feels like, which was funny. I really like that. Anyway, next Winglet book is wait, how is this one called? Deserters. Deserters. This one is easily A tier. Deserters is one of the best pieces of content that we have. It's a background story on Six Claws, which is one of the characters you would expect it least to be interesting on. It's a side character that appears very, very little. He's there for like, I don't know, 20 pages total maximum. I feel like he's like one of the most trusted generals of Queen Thorn. But you don't really care much about him. Like, he has 6 claws, cool, Sunny thinks he's interesting. But in this, it shows his story with Dune, which Dune is also one of those characters which was highly underdeveloped. You didn't know anything about Dune except the fact that he couldn't fly, he was limping, and that he was kind of a piece of shit. I'm sorry. Anyway. But in this book, you realize what has truly happened to them. I think Dune's story is one of the saddest in the whole book, especially how he ends up getting killed in the first book by his neck getting snapped. I think it's a very good story. No matter when you read it, I think this book will make you sad when you think about the implications of it. And the fact that Six Claws could have saved Dune, but he didn't realize how awful Brehm truly was, even though she literally told him he would have him amputated, basically, or like this, yeah, the word where your limbs get torn apart after you die. She wanted to display his claws or something. That doesn't sound like someone right in the head, but you know, it is what it is. Apparently for him, it didn't seem like it. Once you understand that he could have saved Dune, it becomes so much sadder. Burn forever crippled Dune just to spite Six Claws on, which eventually turned him away. He was the best general Burn had, but you know, I guess her plan of intimidating the Mudwings into fighting together with her actually worked. So that was kind of an interesting turn of events. But yeah, it's just a sad story. Very good Winglet though. The next book is Winglet Runaways. I know I haven't read Darkstalker yet, but I will read this Winglet now. This Winglet unfortunately deserves a C tier. I think the story of Prince Arctic and Foeslayer is very interesting, and I was really looking forward to it, but this Winglet didn't really have it in it for me. I think it could have been more. I think I could have been a little more interesting, because it really doesn't feel like they had a real romance going on, which I guess it's to show why their relationship in Darkstalker worked so bad. He was kind of, you know, abusive. He literally looked like his portrayal is like an alcoholic or something in that Darkstalker book. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from him, which is quite sad. He's all like, he just wants to go home. Prince Arctic is a very tragic character. I can totally see his points of view and why he wants to go home. Like, he has to forever leave his home to live in a place where nobody really likes him, where he feels like he lost all his royal heritage, which he really liked. He's an Icewing. He's learned to respect order and hierarchy. That's just who he is. He has no family. The only person he knows is Foeslayer, and while he really does love her, unfortunately, all the anger that's getting piled up inside him for all the things around him gets turned to Foeslayer, which I don't think it's what he's intending to do, but she's really the only person she constantly talks to, and I guess also the kids. But like, he barely acknowledges Darkstalker and Whiteout. He doesn't really like Whiteout either. I mean, he likes that she's an Icewing mostly, so you know. But yeah, not that interesting of a Winglet. It's cool to see that Foeslayer's mom actually just kind of manipulated Arctic. That's pretty funny to see. Sad story. Not a lot of it in the Winglet though. You wouldn't read this that often, you know. It's all I'm trying to say. Man, I might have to make these next ones a little bit shorter because my throat is really starting to hurt. I'm not used to talking this much non-stop, you know. Next book is Moon Rising, the first book in Arc 2, and I think this book takes the top spot in A tier. Now, this book holds a special place in my heart. I think it's the best book in Arc 2. And that's kind of a little spoiler there for what is to come next. But Moon Rising is a great book. I think Moon is my favorite character in the whole series. I think she's just perfect. And I want to say, the prologue of the book where she is in the rainforest and when her mother sees her hatching and the whole story around her, I think it's the only moment in the entire series, or like one of the few, where I almost cried. I don't think, like, I don't usually cry to sad stuff, but I often feel very sentimental to like very sweet stuff, or like things that, like, you know, happy tears, I guess you could call them. That made me so happy, like her whole relationship with her mother. She was so loving, and it's kind of a sad thing that her mother wasn't always near her, but they had such a good relationship. So either way, I think Moon's character is so great. She doesn't know exactly who to trust. She likes Darkstalker. She tries to see everyone, not by how they think, but by like who they are. It's kind of hard to say, because she doesn't believe every thought or every bad thought a dragon has makes them bad, and she doesn't think any action is irredeemable. Actually, I think she's one of the characters which thinks almost everyone is redeemable, even though she doesn't have a weird vision of the world like Rainwings have, where she thinks everything is peaceful. She does believe there exists bad dragons, but she believes that everyone she meets is redeemable, which is an interesting turn of events. She's just a very great character, and her story in her book is cool. It all takes place in the Jade Mountain Academy, which you would think is quite boring, like it's just one place, right? You don't go anywhere in that book. But no, it's actually very interesting. There's so many characters introduced. Her relationship with Winter and Kibli is great from the get-go. With Kinkajou, it's interesting, because she actually gets along quite well with her. Darkstalker is really interesting. Oh, one reason I like this book so much is because when you see points of view of characters, it's often very weird that you never know what the others are thinking, and you know, that's the point. It's written from a perspective of a character, but it's often sad when you see one perspective and you really want to see what the other would have thought to one of the lines of dialogue, right? But in Moon's book, Moon Rising, that's exactly what happens, because she can always read others' minds, and so while the story is told from her perspective, you kind of have an objective view of the situation, which is very, very cool. I like that a lot. I'm glad that Moon, while she is afraid of telling everybody about her powers, maybe mostly about her mother warning her not to, she eventually does. And while she is a shy character, she believes in the goodness of others, and she believes she needs to come clean about everything. So she's actually quite courageous if you think about it. Anyway, this book is A tier. No further comment. The next book we have in Act 2 is Winter Turning. Now, Winter Turning, unlike Book 2 of the of Arc 1, while it's also a book which is not very relevant to the plot, it's a little less memorable, and I mean also a little less interesting. So I will have to put it in B tier. Now, where in B tier, you might ask? I will put it right here. I think it's a little less interesting than The Dark Secret, for example, and it's less important. While it's still better than the Winglet Assassin, mostly because, well, it's a winglet, it doesn't have that many pages. It's kind of hard to justify putting it below it, you know. Winter Turning is actually interesting. I like his story, how he goes back home, he has to deal with his, like, parents. He has a different view of the world now that he was gone, and, you know, he doesn't really like having to be killed for his brother to be better than him. Which, you know, fair enough. I wouldn't like to die either, you know, Winter. I get you. He has a nice character arc. He even saves Slayer, which you wouldn't really expect him of him. His relationship with Moon is interesting, because, like, he loves her, but he really sucks at showing it. For a long time, I wished he would have ended up with Moon, but, you know, Moon is perfect for him, but he is a quite awful partner for Moon. So, in that sense, I think it's the better choice that she ended up with Kibli. Now, I don't really think Kibli is perfect for Moon either, but if she loves him, then, you know, whatever. Because Moon is perfect for anybody. I think Moon is the greatest character. Moon is so cool. Anyway, we were talking about Winter. Yeah. We got a lot of insight on the Icewing's home in the Ice Kingdom. I think that was really nice. You got to see the hierarchy, how people bow, and like everything revolves around the 7 circles. That was interesting. But there's not much to say about this book now that I think about it. I quite liked it. I think it's better than the average book, but just, you know, just by a little bit. Anyway, next book in the series is Escaping Peril. Now, I have seen this book put on tier lists, because I did actually watch a couple of tier lists That's how I got this idea, because I watched a video of someone doing it. Man, my throat really hurts. Anyway, um, some people put it very high on the top, maybe A tier. I think I saw someone put it on S tier, because they like Peril and the character development she gets. I don't like the book at all, and I will explain why. I think the book is very insignificant and annoying, and it just isn't good for the story. That's what I think. So I will put it in D tier. She's still better than the Winglet though. Now, the reason I hate this book so much is the first reason is that I think she was getting a really nice character development up until this book, and then they decided to have her mind controlled, basically, and then she has to do the character development she already did, which I think is, well, quite boring, first of all, and also it's just very annoying to see a character that you know who can do better, like have to do it all over again. Why? Just so I can see her point of view? I don't think it's worth it. Also, this book, nothing interesting happens in it. Like Queen Scarlet does like a gotcha moment, you know? Ha, I got Glory's dead. Which when I first saw it, I was like, is she really though? Like even if she is, that's a bold move, but I don't think she is. And then it turns out it isn't, cause like that was very predictable. I do like her relationship with Turtle, which is another character which was kind of wasted, but that was nice. And I did like her, but like her book really is just so boring. And her whole arc with like finding Scarlet, I don't like Scarlet. I think she was nice in the first book, but I don't like this recurring side evil character that she really feels like a pushover. Like people say, oh my god, Scarlet is so intimidating. I'm like, is she really? No, she has no followers. The only one who even works for her is Chameleon, which has a scroll which apparently he doesn't want her to know, so she doesn't even know what he can do. And then Peril, which Peril doesn't really truly trust her. She really manipulated Peril, I gotta say that. But Scarlet is one of those characters. It's like, so remember, I don't know if anyone watched the Avatar, The Last Airbender. I'm just gonna do a little reference. It's like Zuko when he was bad. First episodes he was a real threat. At some point he got by, like he lost everyone. He was by himself. He still tried to capture the Avatar. He was just a pushover. Like no one cared about him, right? Although that character is really cool, you know. Unlike Queen Scarlet, which I don't really like Queen Scarlet. Anyway, the whole arc with Ruby was kind of cool, but also extremely significant, and it kind of went nowhere. I did like when she killed Scarlet though. The ending was cool. I guess maybe it didn't go nowhere, but it certainly didn't help the plot in any way. And then Peril left, and people still didn't really like her. So I feel like nothing really changed, not even in the character's mind. And while she did accept that she liked fire scales, I kind of wish that while she was enchanted to not have fire scales, she at least got to hug dragons, or for others to feel better towards her. Obviously it would have made the moment sadder when she realized she wanted to have fire scales, but in the meantime I feel like she never got the opportunity to feel like what it was to be a normal dragon, which I think it would have been interesting if she did get it. Anyway, next book. Next book is Talons of Power, which we got to see a point of view of Turtle. Now, I really like Turtle. I think he was very underdeveloped. I don't really like how he basically is exactly the same at the end of Arc 2 as he was at the beginning. Meaning he is cowardly, and although he tries to fight against it, it doesn't always work. And also his book is so boring, nothing is happening. He just follows Darkstalker around, and then, well, it's obvious that he's a bad guy and he takes notes, but he doesn't act on anything until like the last 2 chapters of the book, which those chapters are really cool. You know, his fight with Anemone, which I say Anemone now because I know that's how people call her, and I know that's her name, but to be honest, whenever I read it, I just read it as Anemone. And I know she's a girl. In my mind, she always was a girl anyway, but I just always say Anemone. I don't know why. I know her name is Anemone though. Anyway, this book goes into D tier. I still like it better than Escaping Peril, but I like it worse than Darkness of Dragons. It's just a very boring book. I'm sorry. This book could actually be salvaged if it had more action scenes in it or like something happening. But you know, it's just very boring. I'm sorry. Anyway, next book. Next book is Darkness of Dragons. Now, I am hesitantly putting this into A tier. And the reason I'm saying this is I liked it way better than the Hidden Kingdom, but I also kind of feel like it doesn't deserve to be this high. So I will put it after the Winglet. I liked this book when I first read it, but I have so many problems with it that I'm only letting it be there because in my mind I have a better impression of it than the other books here in B tier. Now, Ghibli is cool, right? And I really like a character. It's kind of like Moon's book, where you can actually get insight on other dragons, but instead of, because it is the main character reading their minds, is the main character making assumptions of what they're going to do. And Ghibli is really smart like that. I liked that the twist that we can get insight of other dragons just by our main character thinking about them, because he's mostly right and he's really smart. That was cool. But his book was all over the place. He went to his grandfather chasing a sandwing which was 19 years old. Like, how the heck is she a student? She's 19. She's more than like triple the age of the main protagonist from Arc 1. Like, how is she a student there? It makes no sense. Did she bribe somebody? Like, what? Yeah, so anyway, then Ghibli goes to his grandfather, then he gets to Thorn eventually with his mother. Here is her mother. He gives everyone those earrings that protect them, and then Onyx comes around with her grandfather. I really didn't like how Ghibli handled that whole situation. I guess it makes sense for his character. That whole superiority complex that he has kind of comes out of nowhere. I don't mind it that much because he grew up in an outlaw style of life, and so he really doesn't know how bad other dragons could be. He always sees bad in other people, or like not necessarily, but he basically has a could be dangerous list in his mind, and yeah, he knows he is always friendly on the outside. That doesn't mean that he's evil on the inside. Not at all. He's quite a good guy, but he's always making plans how to defeat others just in case. You know, it's like Batman. Well, he's nothing like Batman, but he makes plans like Batman. Anyway, so I didn't really like how he handled Onyx. He basically brought a sandstorm, kinda fucked Onyx over. That was kinda sad. Gave a lot of work to Sandwings because of that. And then he didn't really feel sorry about it. Then, in the final scene with Darkstalker, where he refused his animus magic, he really wanted to have animus magic to like make others feel better of him, which like, okay. Also, the ending sucks. Like, I think that ending is so bad. I don't mind him getting turned to a Dragonet, but like changing how he looks, what he thinks, his name, his story. He doesn't remember anything, removing his powers. Like, that's just a different character entirely. Why would you make your arch nemesis a new character? Just make him disappear at that point. It doesn't matter that it's the same guy if it doesn't have anything that the evil bad guy had. It has a different personality, a different name. It doesn't remember anything. Like, I think that's my main problem. If you have a bad guy who doesn't remember anything, nobody knows who he is, and he has a different personality, why even have him still exist? Just so people don't feel sad about the bad guy? Like, I don't like that ending. Anyway, there's some other things I don't like about this book, but I can't really remember them right now. I know I had some problems. It's also a slightly boring book, but I think it's a better end than The Brightest Night. And also Ghibli, so yeah. I did like the insight on other people's thoughts, so I still think I'll leave it in A tier. Just barely A tier. This could be here, but I'm gonna leave it here. Man, I need to drink a glass of water. I feel like I'm losing my voice. Alright, I'm back. Well, hopefully that's a little bit better. Anyway, next book. The next book I'm going to rank is the Legends book Dragonslayer. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't like Dragonslayer, and I don't think it was the best book either, but I think it's better than all of these books in D tier. I actually will put it here in C tier, above the Runaway Winglet. Now, of course, Dragonslayer wasn't the best book. It was very long, it was kind of boring at parts, and people didn't really like it. It was about humans. I didn't mind that part. I think the most interesting by far is Ren's story with Sky, which kind of makes sense. I also think Ivy's story becomes interesting down the line, and her friends, you know. I mean, I have some problems with the book, quite a lot of them. Some of the things don't make sense, some others feel kind of cheesy. Leaf's story was kind of unimportant for a long time. I, yeah, it kind of feels like it's there just so we also know what was happening back in Ren's village. I mean, it's not that bad. Okay, actually, I might need to do a time skip because my voice is really sore and I feel like I can't talk anymore. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow and I'll do a quick time skip to then. So, yeah.
The next day.
Alright, I am back. This is indeed the next day. So, yesterday, after I stopped the recording, I could barely talk, and then today when I woke up, I completely lost my voice. And that wasn't very cool. Now it's almost 2 p.m. right now, and my voice just came back slowly. Still not perfect, but I think it's enough to talk a little more about some books, right? And hey, in case my voice does go away again, it doesn't matter because it's for content, right? Anything for the content. Anyway, last time we left off at Dragonslayer. I think I said kind of what I wanted to about the book. I don't mind this with humans. Ren's story was interesting. Leaf was kind of boring. Evie turned out to be interesting. Overall, not a bad book. I would read it. I think it was cool. But it's a bit long, and I think it kind of drags out. A lot more books could have used more content, and it's not this one. So it has to remain in C tier. The next book we're gonna talk about is probably the most known and appreciated book this series has to offer, and that is Darkstalker. If you ask anybody in the fandom, they would probably tell you Darkstalker is an S tier book, which I agree. I think Darkstalker is an amazing book. Even though I have some problems with it, for example, honestly, I know it's longer than most of the other books. I think it's the longest book beside Dragonslayer. It's still not long enough for it to thoroughly explore its relationships. And what I mean by that is that my main two problems with this book. Okay, my cat just jumped on my my cat just jumped on my computer. Hold on. Alright, that was funny. I have a black cat, by the way, and an orange one as well. They're pretty cute. They hang around me sometimes. Anyway, the two main problems I have with this book is as follows. The first one, I don't think Darkstalker's relationship with Fathom was explored enough, because to me it really doesn't seem like they're best friends, like the book is meaning to tell you. Because it feels like Darkstalker would, as a character, get rid of Fathom pretty early on, especially after he enchants Arctic, because Darkstalker is very annoyed by what Fathom is thinking, because he constantly just thinks to himself, man, Darkstalker is evil, how do I stop him? Man, this guy is evil, he's gonna kill the world, he's gonna destroy everything. I need to stop this dude. And so, you would think Darkstalker would get rid of him immediately, but in the story you're told that no, he doesn't want to do that because it's still his best friend, and so he would rather enchant him afterwards for him to be more agreeable. Which, I mean, it does sound like a Darkstalker thing to do, but I would also think he would get rid of him, or like enchant him from the beginning. His relationship with Fathom just isn't explored enough. And then the other thing I don't like is that Darkstalker is honestly not as bad as he needs to be. I know he was pretty young, he was like 4 years old when he was put to sleep, and so he didn't really have a lot of time to do anything. But if you're going to tell me the whole Night Kingdom has moved away just so they can stay away from this guy, which they didn't know if he was still alive or not, or what happened to him, he needs to do some pretty devious stuff. Now, Of course, he did do the whole knife flies over the Sandwing kingdom and kills random Ice Wings thing, but that's only known to Ice Wings, I'm pretty sure. And he did try to kill the Nightwing Queen, but like, what actually happened that made them move away? Are they all that traumatized by him killing Prince Arctic, his father? Because that was a gruesome scene. I think that's the most gruesome scene in the whole story. Because, oh my god, that guy just disemboweled himself. He committed suicide on like a platform by just ripping out his organs, and everyone watched him. It was quite the spectacle, I bet. But the Nightwings were okay with that. Like, most of them actually wanted him to do that, or like maybe they didn't know he was gonna he was gonna make him disembowel himself. But before he did that, Darkstalker did ask them like, "Do you think he deserves to be punished because he was going to betray our entire tribe to the Ice Wings?" And so they agreed, and that's why I don't really believe they would move away just from that. He really needed to do more bad stuff. He's portrayed as like the as Satan in Book 6, Moon Rising. When you read his scrolls, he's depicted as the most evil guy in the world, which he should have been, but he didn't really do that much. And the other evil stuff he did are not even known to the world. Like, okay, he enchanted Indigo to turn into a statue, which was really bad, but nobody knows. He enchanted Clearsight, his girlfriend, to like not think straight, but nobody knows that either. And like the whole knife in the Sandwing Kingdom, I'm not really sure anybody knows about that either. So the only thing people know about is that he's able to enchant dragons and control them, which maybe that's why, but again, I don't think it's explored enough. Still giving it an S tier though. It deserves an S tier. It's way better than, well, all the other books I have so far. I just wish it was a little longer so it could be explored more and he could have done some more bad stuff. One thing I really do appreciate in this book, comparing it to Dragonslayer, is that while this book has three perspectives, all the characters stick together, and so it doesn't feel like the story is dragging on. And like it just does the skip from character to character just to add suspense, because I hate that in books. I kind of hate it in Dragonslayer because every time I finished Ren's story, I was like, man, when does she come back? Like, why the hell do I need to read these other guys' parts? And at some point that happened with Evie as well. Like, I just want to go back to Evie. Stop showing me Leaf. I hate Leaf. Okay, I don't hate Leaf. I did think his story was alright, but not as good as the other ones. In Darkstalker that didn't happen because all the three characters, aside from the beginning, where they actually had very interesting starts. Fathom's start was amazing with Albatross. I don't even need to talk about that. Yeah, they all stick together, and so it doesn't feel like it's dragging on. Anyway, that's enough about that book. S tier. I don't really know how much I can talk for before my throat gives out, so I'm gonna make the next ones pretty short. I did really like Arc 3 though, so I feel pretty bad going rather quickly about it, but hopefully I can still give some good commentary. So the next book is The Last Continent, which is another one of those cases like the Dragonet Prophecy where they needed to do a lot of world building because it's a new continent. That didn't happen in Moon Rising. Everything was already shown to you, and that's why it's an A tier. They were able to focus on the story. Even though it took place only in an academy. It was kind of a world building book, but you had the ground to base yourself upon. In book 11 though, you needed to go from ground zero. And so it was another one of those cases. I'm gonna put it exactly behind the Dragonet Prophecy. It's not as good because, I mean, less action, the story is different, you don't have the 5 characters, you only have like 1 or 2, and it ramps even slower than the first book. But I think it's still very good. I like Blue as a character. I know he's very timid and some people don't like him because they can't imagine someone who would get willingly walked over by every other dragon. But I can actually see that if you're a dragon who just, like, he's little, right? And he just accepted that his tribe is inferior, I guess. Or maybe he doesn't believe that, but like, that's how things have to be in order for him to be safe and everyone around him. And while it's not a very noble thing, it's what makes sense to him, and he respects the rules. And I quite understand that. I actually think he's a relatable character. Maybe not for me necessarily, but like I can really understand his point of view. But I did like the book. I think it was nice how they did everything, and I think his self-doubts are actually interesting. Better book than Dragonslayer. At least this one wasn't annoying. The next book we're gonna talk about is The Hive Queen. Now, The Hive Queen also did a lot of world building, but I think it's a better book than The Last Continent. Still not as good as the Dragonet Prophecy. That one is just like barely C tier. It could have been B tier, but I just put it in C tier because I like it slightly less than the other ones. Now, The Hive Queen, more things happened. We stole Clearsight's book. We found the Leaf Wings. That was all interesting, right? Actually, maybe we found the Leaf Wings in the first book. I can't totally remember when that happened. Either way, I think Cricket is a better protagonist than Blue. Yeah, actually, yeah, we did find the Leaf Wings in the first book. Never mind, because the second book starts with Blue being a cocoon. I think Cricket is a better protagonist than Blue, and I liked Blue first of all. I really like how she thinks about the world. She puts a lot of questions out. She has a lot of theories. She doesn't know how to cope with the fact that her tribe is the evil they're fighting against, and she wants everyone to understand that some Hive Wings can be like her. I liked where the story was going. Oftentimes in the other arcs, I wanted to know a character's perspective, and then they just changed it to completely another one. For example, in the Dark Secret, book 4 with Starfight, I wanted to see what happens to his blindness. I wanted to be around him and to see how he first reacts to it. And then we immediately go to Sunny in book 5, and then we don't interact with any of the Talons of Prophecy for a very long time, which was annoying. That doesn't happen in book 12 though. The story went exactly in the route that I wanted it to, and that's why I like it so much. The only reason I'm not putting it higher up is because, again, it doesn't have a lot of action, which I don't mind, but it doesn't have as much interesting things that you want to reread. You wouldn't reread this book, probably, but it's a good book for what it is. I think it does a wonderful job building the world. Now, the next book we're going to talk about is The Poison Jungle. Now, The Poison Jungle also does a lot of world building, but unlike book 1 and 2, it also develops characters even more, and it also has action, which is kind of hard to fit in a book, and they somehow did it. They did it quite perfectly, I would almost say. This book is an A tier, even better than The Lost Heir, because I have less problems with it, you know. Sandu point of view is really interesting because she's a very angry character. It's like Tsunami 1.2, and I also like Tsunami, so you know. Her relationship with Willow is also really nice. I liked Willow. Willow is one of those characters which she wouldn't have really worked on her own, which is weird. They're also both girls, which I never thought I would like a lesbian relationship that they have going on. But it's actually really cute, and I like the dynamic. The whole evil plant thing I actually quite liked. I thought like the island was fighting against them. Of course, eventually it turned out that's not what is happening, but you know, I like that theory. And they also explored the jungle quite a lot. Now I think I know more about the poison jungle than I know about some kingdoms in the main story. I know nothing about the mud kingdom, so you know, just one book is all it took for it to be more developed. A tier, good book. Now, the next book we're going to rank is book 14, The Dangerous Gift. And this might be the most controversial book that I can rank right now because of what I'm about to say. A lot of people don't like this book because it took a very different direction from the first 3 books, which I agree. I think it was very different. We got to see Peril again, which was pretty great. But we also took a direction where we made scavengers important. Also, the main character wasn't really related to the ongoing story. And so some people put it in D tier, other people put it in B tier. I think book 14, The Dangerous Gift, is the single best piece of content we got out of Wings of Fire. I know. You can come attack me if you want, but hear me out. I could spend 40 minutes just talking about this book. This is the best thing I have ever read. When I first started reading this, I think in the first sentence it said something like, Snowfall is leaning on her balcony or something, and I was like, oh boy, not Snowfall. I hate this character. This character is annoying. Turns out that was kind of the point. They started the book with her being annoying, but unlike other books, like book 3 right here, The Hidden Kingdom, or I think there was another one, yeah, book 11, where the characters started as like bad versions of themselves and eventually grew to be great. In this one, that was necessary. In the other ones, it felt kind of annoying for a very long time, and when they finally reached their potential, you were like, man, finally, now I can start to enjoy them. But in book 14, I think even though she does all the wrong decisions in a way, and she's just very paranoid, Snowfall that is, she's still interesting, and the book still has action even in the first chapters, even though she is unlikable, you could say. I think they couldn't have done it any other way. It's the only book where I actually like the main character being annoying, because it was necessary for what was about to happen. In this book, Snowfall is not really the main focus of the book, even though she is the one from which point of view you see her. And what I mean by that is that I think almost half the book is her just reliving emotions of other dragons and then changing her own personality according to what she senses in them and how she realizes what sentiments other dragons have, how they view the world, and what she has missed her whole life because she's been stuck in the Ice Kingdom. She learns to sympathize with different tribes ones she never met before. She understands their feelings. She has to quote-unquote fight the enchanted diamond opal, or like whatever it was, the animal-stashed object, which she wants to get rid of, but it turns out it's one of the best things she ever had access to. While she isn't the main focus of the story in a way, all she does is believable and it makes sense. It also develops the plot, it also builds the world, it also fixes a lot of things that were left unclear in the other books. I liked her relationship with her sister. It shows how a character can think, how they can be wrong, if they're okay with that, what their reactions are. I really like that about books. I think the most enjoyable part about books is to see other people's reactions to what your main character is doing. And you can, in a way, you kind of get that through her visions as well. You realize what other people are thinking, even though she doesn't interact with them face to face. And while she's a character that doesn't actually do very much in this book, she just goes from place to place, the way she talks to everybody is so great. I love her in every conversation she has in the entire book, with Hazel, with Sandew. I mean, Sandew kind of just like throws fits at anybody of rage for some reason. With Winter, she forgives Winter. With her sister, Crystal I think she's called. With her other sister, Mink, that was also pretty cool. And at the end of the story, when she realizes she doesn't need any of the things that she thought the world is built around, that was one of the greatest things in the entire world. The last vision she has from the ring, I mean technically the second to last vision. Jerboa's story is so interesting, and a lot of people say, man, Jerboa is the most interesting story ever. Why do they have to do it about Snowfall? It makes no sense. Like, just do the Sandwing instead. No, it does make sense. That's the thing. It doesn't have to focus on the main character of the book. And that sounds weird. And I guess it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I think this book is better than Darkstalker. I think it's the best book in the entire series. And that's kind of a spoiler for the last book. But let's be honest, the last book is not as great as these other books. Yeah, so 10 out of 10 book. I cannot criticize a single thing about it. I think it's perfect. The only thing I don't like is how short it is. It's only 230 pages, I think. I mean, I did read all of them in PDF files because I don't really have access to the books in my country. But whatever. A great book, 10 out of 10. I liked everything about it. She's so sympathetic, Snowfall that is, towards Jerboa. She understands the world better. She forgives, well, the ones that wronged her before. She's just great. A great queen. She's gonna make a great character in the other arcs, if there's an arc 4 at some point. I hope she comes back. I really hope I can see more of Snowfall now. Alright, the last book in the series is Flames of Hope. Now, or like The Flames of Hope, I think. This book could have been great, but honestly, I think it had too much of an idea. It was too grand for its own good. Before I talk about it, I'm gonna quickly rank it. I think this book is better than The Last Continent, but worse than the Hive Queen. I have to put it in C tier. It doesn't do a lot of world building, but I still don't think it's better than the Hive Queen. The Hive Queen was just structured nicely, and The Lost Continent was a little boring at times, although I still really enjoyed it. So Flames of Hope kind of fits right in there. The problem I have with Luna as the protagonist is that she kind of already had a character arc before she started the story in her own book. She went through emotions, went through stages, I already knew kind of what her mentality was, and so there wasn't much of a character development to make, and that makes the story a little bit less interesting. I think Tui realized that as well, and then she spent half the book in a prison, basically, underground, which really just makes this book so much harder to read. If the main character is stuck in place for half the book, it's not as interesting, I'm sorry. And I really did like the whole plot with Cottonmouth and Lizard or Freedom. I think that could have been interesting, but they were just shown too late. You kinda need that thing to develop, you cannot just throw that in the last second. I think Tui kinda screwed herself by making the 5 book arcs type of series, and then she also can't make them too long because every book is supposed to be roughly the same size, except for Legends, which she can just throw whatever she wants in there apparently. This book would have been great. I like the interactions of her with Lizard and Cottonmouth, but it just feels like it drags on while nothing is happening at the same time. It's just a very weird feeling. Because again, first half of the book, things are happening, you find new stuff, you talk with humans. I hate Axolotl, by the way. Why do they have to make her non-binary? I just assume in my head she's a girl, a she, because so many times in the book I got confused because they said something like, oh, they are looking up at Lynx. And I'm like, who's they? I thought we were, oh, it's that one character. Oh, okay. Yeah, nice. I know that's a me problem, but you know, kinda hate that a little bit. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, Luna. Luna is trapped in the underground, and half the book is just basically her talking with Freedom and Cottonmouth. That's kind of what happens while they go through different landscapes, I guess you could call them, and you can sometimes hear other dragons. It's kind of a psychological book, which isn't bad, but as a finale, it's not that interesting, you know? I would still reread this book, but it is a little disappointing to end on this note. I don't mind the scavengers having more screen time, or whatever the book term is for that. I think it's fine. I think it's cool to see what happened with the Scorching, because that was left unclear all the time, and now it's cool to see. I just wish Luna had more of a character girl, because yeah, she doesn't really do anything in this book. Blue is a great example, by the way, of a character who appeared in the first 2 books very much, and then in the 3rd book he appeared less, and in book 4 and 5 he didn't appear like at all, or like almost at all, and he still remained relevant because of the character's stance towards him. It's one of the only times I found myself thinking a character I haven't seen in 2.5 books is very important to the story and very interesting. Or actually no, he wasn't important to the story, that's even the bigger thing. He was just very memorable. I think that's great. I really like book in that aspect. But yeah, book 15, not that great overall, unfortunately, I'm sorry. Oh, I just remember, by the way, that I have also started reading A Guide to the Dragon World. I haven't finished it yet. I got to the Pantalon Dragons and then I stopped. Not because I don't like them as much, but because I literally didn't have time. I actually read the first half of the book yesterday, and so maybe today I'll be finishing it, but I'm gonna rank it right now as I see it. I think it's a pretty cool book. Obviously, it's kind of like unrelated stories, and so they can't be that good overall, but it's a pretty funny book. This one doesn't really count, but I would put it right here for now. It's fun though, it's fun. I would probably never read this one again, honestly, because it's a lot of like dialogue which seems stupid, but it's funny the first time, you know. Future Ibosul here. I finished in the meantime A Guide to the Dragon World, and I think it's a bit better than I gave you credit for in the video. Looking at my tier list, I still wouldn't have put it higher up, but I enjoyed most of the book. Unfortunately for it though, I try to rank these books by what they include overall, not just by the highlights. If I were doing that, this tier list would have looked a lot different, maybe with book 9 being somewhere in A tier. That's what I wanted to say. Now let's bring you back to my old 4 days ago self. It's enjoyable, especially after I finish the series. It feels fun to like still have something to read. And the updated maps and stuff are cool. I also like the drawings. They're really nice. Oh my god, can I just say the drawing of Queen Morhan? It's so beautiful. And the one with Smolder. Smolder is one of my favorite characters, I think. Prince Smolder. You go, champ. Anyway, guys, I think this has been the complete ranking of the Wings of Fire books. I'm sorry this is probably over an hour. I kinda took my sweet time here. But I had a lot of fun. Obviously, I didn't say enough about the books. I could talk for 20 minutes about each of them. Even the Prisoners one, I could talk about 20 minutes of how much I hate it. But I had to make this video, again, not 6 hours long or 8 hours long. And my voice doesn't agree with me anyway. It kinda wants me to shut the hell up. And so, I have to comply. It is what it is. Yesterday and today I had to like drink salty warm water, or like I didn't drink it, I just gargled with it. I drink tea, I took like some throat pill. Yeah, it was not that fun, but hey, it was for a good cause. I really wanted to finish this video. And so here I am. Today is the 1st of June. I don't know when this video will be uploaded, hopefully in not that long from now. Maybe not today, but I hope I upload it soon enough. Hey, if you like this video, you can go subscribe. I wouldn't mind, or like the video. You know, I'm gonna do the classic YouTuber stuff because why not? I heard that's cool, right? Right, guys. I also would wanna do the relationships tier list, but I'm probably gonna wait for that because my voice is not adapted to talking this much, and so I might have to do something else in the meantime. But yeah, if you guys remind me to, or I remember myself, I will do it at some point. Until then, take care guys, and hope to see you again. Bye bye.